Welcome to episode 9 of Life Without Cravings. For so many years, I felt as if I had no control over my food intake, especially when it came to sugar, because that's my nemesis. It's really easy to feel like you're out of control when you are eating pizza and ice cream when you said that you wouldn't do that. And the reason that you feel out of control isn't because you are out of control. Let's just make that clear. It's because you spend so much time and energy focusing on things that you cannot control. And then you block yourself from seeing what you can control, and you will feel as if you are out of control. And I'll explain this a little bit more in a second. But the truth is that you don't have to control everything in your life to feel like you are in control in your life, right? So we just need to figure out what's controllable and what isn't, and then adjust accordingly and focus on the things that we can control. So the less energy we spend on what we cannot control, the more energy we have left to spend on the things that we can control. And what and how much you're eating is definitely within your control. So let's talk a little bit about being out of control. So for many years, I felt as if I was completely out of control with my sugar intake. Like I had no control over how much that was going to be, or how many days a week, or what I was going to eat. The only thing I knew was pretty much that the earlier in the day I start, the more I'm going to eat, because I'm going to have the same cravings in the evening anyway. It wasn't like I could stock up on chocolate before lunch and then eat it and be done with it. I would still want it in the evening. So the reason I felt out of control isn't that I was more out of control than I am now. It's usually just because we're spending so much energy focusing on what we can't control. Like that's just draining our energy so that we have no energy left to focus on what we can control. And we are starting to get really confused about what we can control and what we can't control. Because when you are just focusing on things that are genuinely out of control, out of your control, I should say, that just reinforces that feeling of not being in control. So when you're faced with something like your diet and your cravings, it's really easy to think that you're out of control still. It's hard to see that you can actually do something about it. And we start believing that we're out of control with our eating, and when you do that, then you're in danger. Because when you think that you are out of control with your eating habits, you will struggle to be in control. Because this is in complete opposition to your belief that you are out of control. And if you have a belief that you are out of control, you can't be wrong. And if you start proving yourself as being wrong, then you're in trouble. Because then your brain is like, hey, this doesn't work. Let's just go back to the safety zone and be out of control, because that is what we have decided to believe, and that's where we want to stay. But the good news is that we can change this, okay? So we can start believing that we can control our eating habits, and then from a place of belief that is possible, we can start take action to change it. And often we just eat things that we know that our bodies don't like. So for me, that was sugar, and I would get headaches, I would get stiff joints, I would have brain fog, and I would be constantly tired, and I would carry around more body fat than I actually wanted. So this is just my body telling me that sugar is no good for me. It's sending out all the signals and I'm ignoring them. They don't go through the whole way. I can hear them and I know rationally that sugar isn't good for me, but then I'm still unable to quit because I think that this is out of my control. So it doesn't really matter if I know that it's not good for me when I think that I'm out of control. And what's even worse is that the reason that we eat all of these things is because we have spent our day trying to control things that we can't control. And that is just draining our energy. And now we don't have any energy to focus on our eating habits. We just like surrender. I'm just going to feel out of control and I'm going to eat everything that is in the house because I'm not in control, and then I will feel a little bit better. For a little while anyway. So let me give you a few examples of that. So it could be what other people are saying or doing. So that could be your boss, your partner, your friends, whoever. They might say or do something that you think that they should have done differently. And then just like when that happens, just notice how much time are you spending thinking about what they did wrong? How resistant are you to letting this go? Because when we have thoughts of that nature, we want to hold on to them and we want to just let it fester. And that's not a good energy. So that might be many hours in just one day. And then it might carry on to several days. And some people hold grudges for years, which whoever that grudge is against, it's not going to harm them, it's going to harm you. So it's going to have an impact on your life, and you're the one who's choosing how to do that. Or choosing to do that, I should say. And you might even be, if you like to talk to people, you might even pick up the phone and call all your friends to tell them about what an asshole your boss has been. Then you spend hours talking about it, and you're talking about it for days with several friends, because all your friends clearly need to know this, because it's so unfair, and he was such an asshole, or she. Just notice how much energy you're actually spending on something that is not within your control. There's nothing you can do about other people's behavior, and there's nothing you can do about what has already happened. There's no wonder that you end up caving and eating something that you know won't make you feel any better, because you have no energy left for that. Sometimes what's not within our control is something that might have happened to your body. So this could be maybe like an illness or past trauma, grief, or something else that affects your body both physically and mentally. So if you're suffering from a concussion and you feel nauseated when you eat, or when you eat other foods than carbs, the only food that you want to eat now when you're feeling sick is carbs, and that is caused by a concussion. You might have headaches, and you might have brain fog, and all of those things coming with that, and literally nothing you can do other than giving yourself the time and care to heal, right? But you might just be wanting to stay with the thoughts of how unfair it is, and you don't have a choice now because you're literally feeling sick if you eat anything else than carbs, and you hate it, and this concussion is destroying your life. You're like arguing with what is actually going on. You're arguing with reality about something that is completely out of your control. No matter how much you're thinking about this, no matter how much you're arguing with it, none of this is going to make it better. None of this is going to make you heal quicker. Okay? So resorting to thinking about all the what ifs, or blaming yourself, or blaming other people, arguing with reality about how unfair it is, none of that will help you take control of the things that you can control. You're just going to deplete yourself completely. Anything that has already happened that is out of your control, or even if it was in your control but it has already happened, you can't control that anymore. You can't control anything in your past. The past is the past. It has already happened. Spending energy to think about that over and over again and wishing that it was different, that will also drain you. You can't do anything about it. No matter how hard you think about it, it already is, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nor can you control co-workers who bring in donuts to work, or if they put sweets on your desk, or if your partner brings home lots of ice cream, or if your mother-in-law, God forbid, is disappointed when you don't want to taste her special cake that she made just for you. All of those out of your control. You're probably going to try and say, can you please not put sweets on my desk? Do you really have to bring ice cream into the house? I forbid you to bring ice cream into the house because you know that I can't resist when it's there. Or telling the mother-in-law early on that, hey, I'm not eating that, so please don't bake a cake for me. You can try all those things, but if it doesn't work, it's out of your control. And you can't force people to do what you want them to do, because that never works. The only person that you can change is yourself. But somehow we think it's easier to change other people, which is crazy, because if you can't even change yourself, how do you imagine that you can change other people? Likewise, we can't control thoughts that just pop up in our minds. We can, however, control what our subconscious is doing long term, and we can choose to deal with things differently. But right now, what's popping up in your brain, that is completely out of your control. So what is controllable is your response to all of those things. We can control how we choose to respond to what is happening in our brains. And how you choose to respond to constant pain when you're sick, or how you respond to donuts at work, all of that is within your control. It's always about you and your response to what is going on, to the uncontrollable. That is the difference. Things are happening and they are not within your control. Your response is always within your control. So if you spend a lot of time and energy thinking about the past, or trying to figure out how to control your colleagues so that they stop bringing donuts, or the mother-in-law, or whatever, how much energy do you think that you will have left by the end of the day? When you have to make these hard food choices, like, oh, what am I gonna eat? I don't want to cook, but I do have steak that I could cook. But it's so much easier to just call for pizza. Your brain is going to be like, yeah, let's do the pizza. You're like, okay. This out of my control now, because my brain told me, the higher power, which is my primitive part of the brain, just told me that I need to have pizza today because that is the best option. Like, you're not even trying. Just giving up. Because you don't have the energy to even think about trying to control what you're eating. So I know exactly when I have a client that is focusing too much on what they can't control. I have some clients who constantly bring up what has happened in the past and explain why they're doing what they're doing right now with telling me about what's happened in the past and why they can't do something. So let me give you an example. So I had a client a while back. In the beginning, when we were working together, she would do well for a bit, and then she would have a slip up, and then she would do well for a bit, and then she would have another slip up. And she kept telling me that this is the pattern that I always follow. I've had this my whole life. And then she would go on and tell me about how powerless she would feel when she was giving in to her cravings. So what is actually happening here is that she was focusing so much on her past and what her standard pattern was, and accepting that as some sort of universal truth. Like, this is who she is, and there's nothing she can do about it. Because she made that mean that she had no control of what she was doing. It's just like, well, I've always done that, so that is always going to happen. As if that was out of her control. The past decisions are already done. They're in the past. So continue to spend time on these decisions that we have already made, and then using them as weapons against ourselves so that we can't go to where we want to go, makes us a lot less able to make the good decisions both today and in the future. But when you can let go of what's happened in the past or using it against yourself, you're setting yourself up for a lot more success. So when you start digging into why these decisions were made in the past, what you will find is that all of these decisions that you made them because of a story that you have been telling yourself. And you're like, no. This is the truth, and that's why I did it. But I dare you, if you want to figure out what it is and you think that is the truth, come and talk to me. I'm pretty sure we can find a story that you're telling yourself. So when you can uncover this story, there is no reason for you to make that decision again. When you can see what you're doing, what the pattern is, we can get rid of it. But until then, it's always going to be there. And if you believe that it's just going to be there forever, that's what's going to happen unless you change it. If we can uncover this and get rid of it, then you're free to make a different decision. You are so much more powerful than you think. You're like, yeah, Pim, I don't really believe you. That's not true. It is true, because you have a human brain, and human brains are amazing. We have the unique ability to choose what we want to think. And all of you can do that. Animals can't do that because they just have one animal brain, like the primitive part of the brain that is reactive and is there for their survival. We humans, we have brains that can do amazing things. We can invent things, we can go places. There's so many things that we can do because we have a human brain that animals can't do. And unfortunately, the animal brain in us causing some trouble when we're living in a society that we aren't really meant to be living in. So you literally have everything that you need inside of you to create the life that you want. You just have to believe it and know that you can do that if you're using your brain in the right way. And there might be some bullshit in the way. And if there is, and you want my help, that's what I do. I remove the bullshit so that you can move forward. I'm more than happy to help you with that. And I promise you, you won't have to control everything in your life or anything that has happened to you in the past to be able to enjoy a life without cravings. We can just accept that that has happened and move forward. You can just make a decision to move forward and look forward to what is going to happen and where you want your life to go. And that was all I had for you today. So keep moving forward, and I will see you again next week. Bye!